you have to be in the driving seat of your life, right? And it's kind of alludes to what you said before, right? You can't fall asleep at the wheel. If you find yourself in the back seat in life and the car's just going and you're not steering it anymore, for me anyways, like that's not a good spot to be in, right? Now I have no control on where I'm going.
Freeman Beals, welcome to the Dad's Project podcast.
Woo!
Excited to be here, excited to connect. Selfishly, the first thing I want to talk about, tell me about your background as a river guide.
I'm glad you started there. Okay. So I was born into it quite literally. When I was 5, 6, my parents started a whitewater rafting company with like zero background knowledge. My mom was actually afraid of water. She almost drowned when she was a kid. So she was afraid of water. And to this day, honestly, it's a bit of a mystery why she moved to rural Alberta and started a whitewater rafting company. But yeah, at 5 years old, it was the first time on the river. And then just last weekend, I was out guiding again. So yeah, I still do it off and on now.
That's amazing. What do you think you took from that example from your mom with regards to like stepping into something that you may be scared of or you know nothing about? What'd you take from that?
It definitely instilled this belief in my brain for sure of like, you can kind of do anything you try, right? Here's somebody who with 2 kids and a degree in graphic design, starting a whitewater rafting company in 20, it's been 28 years and they're still doing it. So you can make it work. And so for me, that's definitely what it instilled, that entrepreneurial spirit, that idea of like, hey, yeah, this seems crazy and people might call you crazy, but that doesn't mean you can't do it.
Right. Wow. That's such a powerful example. How have you used that? Like where have you been scared, or maybe, I don't know what I'm doing right now. Where have you stepped into that in your life?
A lot ever since I think my entire life, more than I probably remember. I think I've been like that. Whether it's, like I said, entrepreneurial from a very young age, or one of the ones that jumps in my mind the most is I never took any post-secondary. I thought I would be a raft guide for the rest of my life, and then I was humbled eventually as I got older that I was like, oh, maybe this isn't the career for me.
Like you had to grow up at some point? Like
exactly. 100% is what happened. I was like, oh, I need a real job in my life. Totally what happened. So when I was young and I graduated high school, instead of going to post-secondary, I went to Australia. My parents bought me the plane ticket and I had some savings in my bank account, and that was the entire plan. Like I'm not exaggerating. I landed at Sydney Airport. I didn't know where I was going to sleep that night. This is how little planning I did with it. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I'll just figure it out. And I was in the taxi line after getting out of the airport. And the gentleman in front of me goes, oh, where are you headed? We can share a cab. And I was like, I don't know. Where are you going? He's like, oh, I'm going to this hostel. I'm like, I guess that's where I'm going too. And that's where I spent my first few nights in Australia and kind of got my feet underneath me and figured out what was going on. So it's been a constant for me. I've tempered it after having a child. I've had to rein in that level of like spontaneity, if that's a word, that I did have when I was younger, right? You have more responsibilities and, you have a mortgage and somebody who, is looking towards you for guidance. So a little bit less spontaneity now than I used to.
Yeah, a little bit. I hope you're holding on to some of it. And before we jump into you as a dad, what is that life lesson? And I think I saw you shared something on LinkedIn around this question, but what is that life lesson from rafting or being a raft guide that has like helped you throughout life that you continue to hold on to?
Yeah, I think what you're alluding to, and there's a lot of these, but one of the big ones is it's the ability to adapt, right? So as a raft guide, you learn that you need to have direction and you need to have an idea on where you're going. But you also have to have this ability to go, okay, what I'm doing right now isn't actually going to get me there, or they're going to do it safely in terms of rafting, but like it's not working. How can I still move forward in a direction that I need to go, but change and adapt what I'm doing? Because oftentimes, and I've seen this happen and done it myself on the river, you try so hard to make that thing happen that it ends up going badly, right? Because you haven't adapted to the environment around you. And that's still very much a big lesson that I've learned, right? Like life will keep moving. The water doesn't stop moving. Right. So get comfortable adapting, right? And literally, as cheesy as it sounds, you got to go with the flow, right?
I mean, yes, cheesy, but applies in so many situations, right? Hey, you just got to go with the flow. The water is going to go. You're not stopping it, right? So I'm big on behavior. What is that behavior? You feel yourself working so hard to try and go after something or achieve some goal, and you're just like, this is not working. What is that behavior for you that you're like, I've got to make this change? What does that look like?
That's a super solid question, Nick. What does it look like? It's tough for me to answer that. It's certainly something that I think I've gotten wrong, and will probably still get wrong. I think I follow a lot of people online and stuff, right? There's this understanding that if you want something really badly, you're often going to be challenged by the universe, whatever you want to believe, to make that happen, right? So there's a level of commitment that you need to do in order to get something done. So I've definitely found myself pivoting too quickly, right? Been too agile to go, I'm going to try this thing, I'm going to try that thing. So there's definitely the other side of that that's dangerous, where you're not staying consistent enough and you're not sticking to something enough to make it even work. For me, it's very much like an instinctual thing. It's a gut check, right? And it's aligned a lot with my values. So what do I value as a human being? What are my core values that I believe? And is this thing that I'm doing, does it still align with my values? Because maybe it did when I first started doing it, but now 6 months, a year later, whatever like that, reinvestigate that. Go, okay, does this still align with what I hold true, right? For me, a lot of that is like, I have to have the freedom to spend time with my family, right? Like that's like a huge core value to me. Whatever I'm doing has to be ethical, and I have to believe in it, right? I really struggle in traditional 9-to-5s because I don't care enough about the security of the job, and I can appreciate people who do. Like, I don't want to bash people who do dig their 9-to-5s, because man, like,
right,
if you can do a 9-to-5 and continually do that, amazing. It's so hard for me. I push against it. Like, there's an internal block that just doesn't live that kind of life, because it's disassociated with those values of mine, of that freedom, of that ability to control my own schedule. And I'll take the risks on that. So for me, it's like a gut check of, does it still align with my values? And I can give you examples of how my coaching sort of has advanced and changed over the last 3.5, 4 years to always be ensured to align with my values. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to pull on one of those threads because I think it's so powerful, because we kind of fall asleep at the wheel. And obviously you do not want to fall asleep in the raft, right? But it's this concept that keeps coming back up where, dads or men specifically, we get comfortable in this place and then we don't do that check-in, right? So if you're going to give me some coaching advice and you're speaking to me, like, I am also like jumping from thing to thing. Ooh, let me try that. Let me try that. Like, that's exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And up until a few years ago, I had never been in a traditional job. Like, I always made the joke, like, I've never had a real job. Like, I've never gone to work, from the military to owning a gym to, being a coach, working in wilderness therapy. It's like, these are not real jobs. Like, I'm playing in the world. Right. So what does that check-in look like? What's a question I can ask myself? And I think the first one is, does this still align with my core values? And what's that next question? Like, where do I go next? Like, oh, it doesn't align. Like, oh man, I am out of alignment with what I thought I was going to be doing. What do I do next?
I think another big warning sign for me, and I think maybe for some people as well, now that I think about more, and you can let me know, Nick, if this aligns with you, if you like resonate and go, yeah, that makes sense. I firmly believe in this thing is like, you have to be in the driving seat of your life, right? And it's kind of alludes to what you said before, right? You can't fall asleep at the wheel. If you find yourself in the back seat in life and the car's just going and you're not steering it anymore, for me anyways, like, that's not a good spot to be in, right? Now I have no control on where I'm going. So, and again, I think as entrepreneurial people, this speaks volumes to people, right? But I think even in a 9-to-5, right? If you just find that like your 9-to-5 is there, you have no joy in it, there's no passion, there's no like purpose to life anymore, which you don't have to find in work. You can find in hobbies, and that's okay. But if in life, if you realize, hold on, like, I'm no longer actively taking decisions on what my life is doing, I think that's a time to kind of give yourself a bit of a, hold on, like, what's going on? Where are we going?
Yeah.
Because I don't know, time's just so precious, right? And there is times when you can slow down for sure. But again, I think you have to be like, consciously slowing down and going, I'm going to take it easy. And maybe that is, the season of working the 9-to-5 that you literally just clock in, you don't have to think about it. You do that for a year or two just because your focus is elsewhere. But your life, that vehicle of your life, you should still be driving it.
Yeah. And I don't want people to listen to this and take away that like the 9-to-5 is not it, right? You and I maybe don't subscribe to that. I do work a 9-to-5 currently, but I've got hobbies and side projects and probably too many things going on, right? That I'm actively trying to steer the car, maybe from a little bit of the backseat. I don't know. Maybe we have to have another session for this, but what I don't want people to hear is there's one way you should be doing it, like quit your 9 to 5, and because it's not for everyone. Right. But what I hear you saying, and I think the message is you need to be proactive in your life and not just take what it's giving to you and then not being happy in it. Like be active in your own life as opposed to asleep at the wheel, asleep with the paddles, whatever analogy we want to hear. Man, super deep, super quick. I'm loving it. Transitioning, you're obviously a dad of a 2-year-old son, I believe. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah.
Where have you been challenged in the last 2 years as a dad?
Do you got how much time do we have?
Hey, we'll keep going.
Yeah, I remember when I first had our little boy Finn, and I think all dads get this question, right? From everybody around them. They go, oh, like, what's it like being a dad?
Yeah.
And I just remember it being like, none of my priorities have changed in that sense, right? People are like, oh, you're going to stop doing this and stop doing that. And I was like, well, no, because those are still important to me. But suddenly this new level of priority that I didn't realize could exist now exists, right? It's like, oh, yeah, like this is so much priority. But now this level of priority has opened that I didn't think I could have. And that's where my son lives, right, is in that highest priority. So then balance, of course, becomes an issue, right? How do you balance all the things that you enjoy in life and change sort of what your core values and beliefs, right, are? And I think that's a huge thing on this topic. I think people think, oh, my values are my values forever. And it's like, well, no, they're not. Like, you should reassess those. Things like parenting are probably going to shift your values, right? Like for me, obviously, I've had to devalue that level of spontaneity a little bit. I'm not going to go book a 4-month trip to Southeast Asia with a 2-year-old, although we went to Japan last winter on a bit of a spontaneous, 3.5 months in Japan. So I'm still doing it, but a little bit more controlled, right? Like we had a job over there that we went to and stuff like that. So it changes. Again, those values have to change. So that's the first one. Was it like, okay, I have to be aware that I need to potentially change my values. That was the first big challenge that I had. And then the other one, to be just fully transparent and kind of raw, is it was hard for me to, like, you have different behaviors and reactions as a father that nothing else in life prepares you to have those reactions. I'm generally speaking, outside of a few subtle bits in my life, I'm a very calm person, very level-headed. Most of my life, people were like, oh yeah, like nothing bugs Freeman. Like, and that's the way it was in school and everything, right? Like I was like, like shit just didn't worry me. I was never bullied in school because I didn't care, right? Like I showed up to work in a coonskin hat and a massive big leather jacket for a whole winter because I was like, this is what I'm going to wear and I don't care. But then, like I find things like my toddler doing things that like just send you over the edge, right? Like he throws his milk cup across the kitchen and it's like suddenly I have no fuse. So that was a huge one for me, right? Like where are these reactions coming from? Because they are not who I'm used to being. And so coming to grips with that and figuring out how to change that. And, I'm not perfect by any means. So still working on those things, right? It's a classic thing where it's like, I think being a parent really makes you realize how much work you still have to do on yourself.
Yeah. It's like it's a spotlight. Right? Maybe it was always there, but really, like you said, you didn't care enough about most things to truly be invested. That would send you over the edge. But now that you are so passionate about being a dad and you have this pull to be a great dad, that something happens and it's an immediate like, wow, 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 wow. And you have to learn what is that positive behavior change. And I think that's a great segue. Like, you're an NLP practitioner. You're now specifically coaching dads. First off, what is NLP?
Great question. So NLP stands for neuro-linguistic programming, which is a fancy way to say the way that we use language and the way our brain stores language creates patterns, and we can use language to change those patterns, right? So you'll hear this. Here's how I'll sum it up in kind of 2 points. One being the classic way of thinking about our life is that we are who we are because of what happened to it in our past, right? So it's a very Sigmund Freud way of looking at the world. There was another person around Sigmund Freud's time, and he had this belief that was like, it's not so much what happened to us that makes us who we are, but what we believe about what happened to us that makes us who we are. And the cool thing is NLP helps us change those beliefs about ourselves. Because if you change your belief on an event or whatever, it can then change the way that your body reacts to that, right? And the other side of that is sort of, I look at NLP as a way to break through subconscious problems. So if you're going up against something and you can't consciously stop doing it, whatever it is, right? That's because it's a subconscious problem, right? Because if it was a conscious problem, you could consciously think your way out of it. So thus, it must be a subconscious problem. So hopefully that answered the question of what NLP is.
Yeah, what I'm hearing is it is a, again, proactive way to use language in order to process, something I'm passionate about, positive behavior change to get to a result. Are you familiar with the concept of the second arrow?
No, please enlighten me.
So I believe it's a Japanese tale, or I forget the term now. I think I'm only famous for butchering quotes and thoughts, but so things are going to happen to us, right? Things are always going to happen in life. That's the first arrow. The second arrow is the reaction that you have to that event. And are you going to allow the second arrow to be just as dangerous as the first one? Or with your reactions, with your thoughts, what I'm hearing from you, with your language, are you going to prevent the second arrow's impact?
Exactly. Yeah. And so this ties in beautifully with this concept, right? Of like, I love this. I'm going to dive into this more with this arrow concept, right? Let's say that first arrow hits and it changes the way you think, right? You get to choose what that arrow means, right? And the thing is, when we're really young, our subconscious will just decide for us, right? This is what that arrow meant. And then our brains will look for other pieces in our environment that cement that idea. That arrow meant this. Thus, when I see this thing happen in my life, I'm going to reinforce that it means this, and that's why the arrow exists, right? So if you change the understanding and the belief of what the arrow is, or who fired it, or what the intention behind it was, you begin to look for different patterns in your life that reinforce that belief or that thought over a different one.
Okay. Can you give me an example? You've worked with a dad or men of changing the thought, the language around that first arrow. Do you have an example?
Yeah, I'll give you one from myself because I feel like personal stories always are a little deeper. So when I went into my NLP training, I had no intention of using it for coaching. I had no intention of working with dads, was not a niche that I had ever thought about before. But then in NLP training, I had all these amazing breakthroughs essentially with how my parenting works. So again, I was having these reactions that I didn't like, and I was trying things like breath work, and I've done a ton of research in positive psychology, and I used to be a stress coach. I should be able to handle these things, right? You'd think so, right? I was like, why am I not being able to? I can't handle this level of stress. What? This is what I do for a living. So then it was really interesting to dive into some of that stuff. So to give you a concrete example, there's a lot of interesting techniques, and so one of them is essentially shifting what we call submodalities, which are the way that we view an event. So we view an event visually, auditorily, kinesthetically, olfactory, which is smell and stuff like that, right? So if you change those in your brain, so if you have a very bright event and you change it to being a very dark and dim event, it doesn't have as much impact on your body, right? So I did this with for example, the whole throwing his cup across the kitchen thing. He used to send me off the edge. I did some modality shifts and some techniques through that, and now I don't really get a reaction there. It still frustrates me, right? But not to an unwanted level of frustration and leading into anger. It's just okay, yep, that's annoying, but whatever. And then the big thing, I think for me, the big breakthrough was emotionally, I think a lot of males and dads will resonate with this, is we don't generally feel sadness. It's an emotion that we tend to push away, right? And I think that's, honestly, it's a generational problem for men. So to not feel sadness, right? And so I was doing this work, doing some timeline work, and worked through sadness. And then I realized that sadness isn't bad. Sadness is good. There's good in sadness, right? Sadness exists because there was joy. If there wasn't joy, there couldn't be sadness. And that really helped me forgive my parents, forgive my little boy. And that really helped level a lot of my emotions out. And still to this day, it's certainly very, very helpful.
Man, those are two really good examples. I want to pull on the first one first with regards to the throwing the milk. So we've reframed it from this bright event, reaction is big. I'm frustrated. I'm not really in control. Can you go one step deeper? What is that actual reframe? How do you lower the brightness?
Yeah.
Walk me through that.
Do you want, we could literally do it. It only takes 5 minutes.
Let's do it.
So,
live in action on the show.
Yeah, we do it right here, right now. I do want to preface this and just say, if you're listening to this right now and you're driving, don't play along with this, okay? Because there is it is a light hypnosis that happens, and it's not a good idea if you're driving, okay? So please, if you're driving and you want to follow along, you can do so. because the cool thing about NLP is, unlike talk therapy, like, you don't have to tell me anything. It can be completely just, you're just saying, yep, cool, got it. This is where I am now, right? So I encourage people to follow along with this. And what I'm actually going to do as well, I just have this thought. I'll create an audio for this as well, and I'll provide a link. People can download this as well. So I'll create an audio, and then whoever's listening to this, if you go to freemanbeals.com, I'm just going to call it /dad project or dad's project, and you can download the actual audio. I'll create that and put it up. So when this live, okay, that will also be live.
Cool. We'll drop that in the show notes. If you guys are listeing, watching, you can find that. Sweet. So that's cool.
Cool. All right. So Nick, we'll dive right into this, and we'll get into this. So we've got a little bit of this, like an understanding of this, which has been great. We talked through kind of like what we're going to do, drop through those different types of some modalities, and I'll walk you through them here as well. All right. Nick, do you have a window in your space? In your studio? Yeah. Okay, cool. So you can do this with your eyes open, but just kind of look towards your window. All right. And I want you to imagine a situation, okay, as a picture placed right in front of that window. So on your side of the window. And I want you to imagine that situation where maybe you felt either off or overwhelmed or overreactive. Let me know when you kind of got that image up.
Okay. Yeah, I've got it.
Perfect. Okay, now I want you to step into that picture. So you're in that moment. So you're seeing it through your own eyes, like you're back in it right now. What emotions are present for you right now?
A little defeated. Or
defeated?
Scared.
Scared, yeah. Cool. So now take that picture, all right? I want you to make it really bright and vivid. Maybe boost the contrast up. Blacks are really black. Those lines really sharp. The color's really rich. If there are any sounds, make them really loud so you can really hear them. Now I want you to put a frame around that whole picture. Just take a second and notice how that feels inside your body. Perfect. Now I want you to step out of that picture. So leave you in it, the image of yourself still in there, but step out of that picture. So now you're looking at yourself in that situation.
Okay.
Okay. Now take that image and put it on the other side of the window. So now it's slightly obscured. That pane of glass is between you and it. The colors are a little less vibrant. Okay, maybe the noise is muffled. The image itself is a little blurry. And how does that feel now?
A little more controlled.
A little more controlled? Yeah. Anything else?
Yeah, controlled, manageable.
Controlled, manageable.
That feeling comes up.
Now I want you to push that image farther out into the sky, towards the clouds or the trees, whatever's outside that window. And as you push it farther away, make it black and white, grayscale. Pull all the color out of it. Dim the brightness way, way down. It's getting dimmer and dimmer. Make it smaller and even farther away now. And if you can, push it even farther away. So far away that now it's just the size of a postage stamp. It's tiny. It's way out there. Now even smaller now. Now it's just a tiny dot in the sky. Now so far away that you can't even see the image anymore. So far away that the sounds are completely gone. And as hard as you try now, you can't see that image. Can't hear those things anymore. You can't connect to that moment at all. How does that feel now?
Distant.
Distant? Yeah. What else is different? Do you notice the difference in your body, your emotions, your thoughts towards that event?
Yeah, the manageable and controlled continues to come to me.
Manageable and controlled. Cool. We'll do one more piece on this. I want you to now imagine a time in the future where you'd have a similar event. How do you feel towards that event now?
Calm, capable.
Capable. Those are good words. Awesome. Thanks, Nick. That's it.
Yeah, that's powerful.
Yeah. Then only took us 5 minutes.
Listening. Yeah, if you're listening, go through that. Like, obviously, I'm answering the questions. Maybe my words are distracting you, but we have the recording. Check out the show notes so that you can do it yourself. And it's simple. And I know, the common male reaction will probably be like, oh, this is cheesy, right? Like, a lot of people will still feel that. Push that off, like swallow the ego, the pride, you're alone, go through the exercise and actually see what comes up in your body. Like, powerful. Man, I really appreciate that.
No worries, Nick. I'm glad I could share that. It is, and I will say, I had a little bit of a thought. I'm like, I'm niching to dads. I'm niching to a group of people that they're going to think, what is this kind of woo-woo sciencey thing, and honestly for me though, I'm like, even if half the people, a third of the people, right, resonate a little bit with it and get benefit from it, then it's worth it to me, right? I'll take all the hate from anybody who thinks it's crazy if it means it'll help a few people, because to me it's worth it, right? It's changed the way that I interact with my kid, and I know how valuable that is to myself, and I wouldn't want to keep that away from other people.
Yeah. The beautiful thing about dads, and this is what I've experienced since I'm becoming a dad, dads that have been in my life from friends and family, and even more recently, this is my third conversation with a dad today around the podcast and the work they're doing in the realm of dads. Dads are so hungry to be better, to show up, to be present. And that's a word that continues to come up, to be present for their kids and to not repeat the patterns, which I think you've written about in your work, from their childhood or their previous actions or previous generations. So I love the direction of your work. Obviously, it's relevant for me as well. But man, I think dads are so hungry.
Yeah, I agree with you. And it's tough because I think this is the thing that when I realized that dads is who I wanted to help, it dawned on me as well that I think we are really the first generation of dads and we have no playbook on what it means to be a dad like we're being a dad, right? Our dads probably, for most of us, worked a lot, right? And they were gone. And literally since the agricultural revolution, the father figure has been out of the house working, and the mother figure has taken on that role, right? But now, due to no fault of anybody's involved at all, women are spending more time in their careers, which I totally support. And then dads get to spend more time at home with their kids, which again, I support. And I'm super grateful that I've got to do that stuff. But nobody's showed us how to be a dad, right? Because being a dad, a stay-at-home dad, or a dad that's very there for your kids, isn't the same as being a mom who's there for your kids, right? Like, both of those things are super important. But a dad doesn't do it in the same way the mom does, and vice versa. But it's been generations since we've had to do that with our kids, right? To be present, to be there, to be calm, to be grounded. So yeah, I think it's tough. I think it's tough for dads right now.
Yeah. And I love how you put it out. There's no playbook and we're like writing it as we go. I think a constant reminder to so many dads is like, hey, you're doing the best you can. You're going to mess up. Milk is going to get sprayed across the kitchen and you're going to react poorly. Like, welcome, right? But like, what do you do next? What's the pattern interrupt? Whether it's NLP, it's language, it's, a note to yourself on your mirror, like who knows? But keep going. Don't beat yourself up. We're doing the best we can. And I'm excited about this. Like, I've got a good friend who was a stay-at-home dad with 3 daughters. And I'm like, dude, you're living the dream. Like, that's epic. He has recently gone back to work now that they're older. But like, it was such a shift. Yeah. From what we saw, right? And, like you said, so supportive of women who I think bring so much to the workforce, different than we do, just like they do at home. And like, how do we find that ebb and flow of the masculine, the feminine, the mom, the dad, to create the best atmosphere for our kids and the best impact in our careers? So yeah.
It was definitely some work I had to do on myself during my training. Is this idea of it's called parts integration. Essentially, you take 2 parts of yourself that feel like kind of warring differences, and you figure out that they're actually aligned and they have a similar overall direction that they're trying to get to. And for me, it was, and I think probably a lot of dads will resonate with this, right? Is I have to work, I have to provide for my family, right? But I also have to be there for my kid. So every time I'm at work, I'm not there for my kid, and if I'm there with my kid, I'm not working. Right. And I didn't realize this at the time, but like that created just this undertone for me of like stress and unease. Every time I was working, I wanted to be at home. And every time I was at home, I wanted to be working. And then through some NLP techniques and stuff like that, I realized those 2 parts can get along just fine. Right. They're both heading towards the same goal. And that was super beneficial as well. Right. Because it's tough, man. Like, and I think to your point, Nick, I think you said it really beautifully. And it's a big thing I'm a proponent of, is that like, we're just doing the best with what we have. Right. And like having that forgiveness for yourself is huge, right? And you said at the beginning of this thing, like another big quote that I really enjoy, not a quote, but a concept, which is like, yeah, you get angry or you react because you care. And it's not because you don't, it's because you do. Right. If it didn't bother you, you wouldn't react, right?
Right.
But yeah, so just be aware of that, right? Like we're all out here just doing the best that we can. So yeah, have a little bit of forgiveness, I think is important.
Yeah, for forgiveness for yourself and also forgiveness for, your dad or your parents. A clip I'm going to share here shortly, one of these days, is, me sharing that I did a podcast with my dad. Mm. And when he was diving in, I was like, what was it like to be my dad? And he's like, it was great, but like, I didn't know what I was doing. I was just doing the best I could.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that pull that you talked about regarding I've got to be the provider, I've got to be working, that's my role, but I also want to be present is now more supported than ever with dads. Like, hey, it's okay to be the dad that wants to be home and be present. Like, we're making podcasts about it and like showing up for each other and those types of things where his generation, maybe not. So tying all that like forgiveness and accepting, everyone's doing the best they can and figuring it out one day at a time. And I think that's a great segue to get to your like dad principles, because this first one I think ties into some of that conversation. The first one, rewire, don't repeat. What does that mean?
So this goes back again to, I struggled with this all the time, right? Where it was like, I'd want to change the way I was doing something, right? For example, we'll go back to the milk throwing thing because it's an easy one. I'm sure people can connect with something along those lines, right? And every time Finn threw the milk, I did the same reaction, right? It was the same reaction. I just repeated something. I repeated a pattern in my brain. And it wasn't until I rewired that pattern and I had a pattern break in there that I could change. So that's where that comes from, that rewire, don't repeat, right? If you find yourself just repeating, it's because something needs to change and be rewired neurologically. So what's happening, just to go a little bit of neuroscience here, because I was a neuroscience geek before I was an NLP practitioner, and all the NLP stuff, I know it on the surface, it seems like this woo-woo stuff, but it's all locked in neuroscience to some degree. So we have neurotransmitters in our brain, right? When something happens, our brain sends a signal across the neurotransmitter, and that hits the other side of the neurotransmitter, and that's what makes things happen. The more your brain does that, the bigger you have what's called a myelin sheath around that neurotransmitter, and that acts as insulation, so it happens faster and more effective. It's like a superhighway in your brain. So the first time it does it, it's not as effective. The second time it does it, it's more effective. What NLP work does is it actually creates a new neural pathway in your brain between this reaction and that reaction, right? So you're literally rewiring the way that you're reacting to something versus just falling into the similar pattern. That's where the word rewire comes from, because you're actually creating new neural connections in your brain.
Got it. So it all starts with self-awareness and then changing the pattern to rewire towards a more positive reaction.
Yeah. And honestly, as much as I want to say it, you have to have self-awareness. Like, you have to have an awareness of a problem, obviously, I think, but you don't have to have an awareness of where the problem comes from. But I think that's a big thing that people, like, that's traditional talk therapy, is like, let's find out where that comes from. But when you do NLP work, sometimes the stuff that you work through isn't even related at all to the problem that you're having, but it clears it. Because like the subconscious mind uses its own language, its own vision, its own remembering of events, right? And you just have to believe, like, this is the thing that you have to do when you're doing subconscious work. It's like whatever the subconscious mind comes up with, that's the truth of the subconscious mind. You just work with it. So you don't necessarily have to know where the problem comes from, just that you're aware that there is a problem that you want to solve it.
Yeah, I love that. And that's one of the, I have a background in mental health counseling, and one of the things I didn't like about studying that was always trying to find, like, what is that root? What is the root? As opposed to, what is that next best step forward? Mm-hmm. What can we do moving forward? I love it. Number 2, and this continues to come up with almost every podcast, you're not alone.
Yeah. And again, if you haven't caught this already, I'm very authentic and open book. I remember at one point in time, this isn't that long ago, I was just talking to ChatGPT about how I felt as a dad. And that was I was sitting in a park, and, just the only thing I had to chat to was an AI chatbot. And I was like, oh boy, this is a low point. What's going on in my life, right? That the thing that I have to go to chat to is just an AI. And don't get me wrong, it was very beneficial and therapeutic, and I got some benefit from it. But I think that it's really easy as a dad to feel isolated, to feel like you're the one that's supposed to have it all figured out, so that by saying you don't have it all figured out, you're somehow ostracizing yourself. So I think that's a big thing. And, it's something that Dad Good does really well, right? We're both part of that. And I think it's an amazing group of people that's like, hey, we're all in this together. You're not alone. It's okay to ask for help. I have this favorite quote of mine that's like, asking for help is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of strength that you're not willing to give up. So to dads, like, ask for help, reach out to somebody.
Yeah, just be willing to have the conversation, right? And you'll be shocked with the number of men in general, dads that will say like, "Oh my God, I felt the same way," or I'm not struggling there, but here's where I'm struggling. Can you help me there? And this is what I think about your challenge. And you're right. Like, shout out to Dad Good. If you guys aren't a part, check them out on LinkedIn. I think they're on Instagram and everything as well. But super cool. Over 1,000 dads in there. Whatever you need, somebody's got it. So super cool. So shout out to those guys. But yeah, you're not alone. Be willing to have those conversations. I think we're all trying to do the work. Conversations like this, right? Like, I was sitting alone in a park chatting with an AI. Like, I felt so isolated. I've been there too. Like, I mean, this is the sign of the future, right? Like, you're having these intimate conversations with an AI. Like, hey, what should I do next? Like, whether it's parenting or work or whatever it may be. So, Freeman, you're not alone, man. I've been there.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Nick. Thanks, man.
Yeah. Number 3, I think we already hit this one, but we are writing the playbook of being a dad.
Yeah, like we said before, right? It's that fact of like, it's okay to not have it all figured out, right? You never had an opportunity to be shown this stuff, to be taught this stuff. Like, you're writing the playbook right now. And again, you're doing the best with what you got, and, like you said, Nick, just keep moving forward, right? Like, it ties into all that stuff for me, right? Reach out for help, figure out what patterns you're doing, figure out how to change those patterns. So.
Yeah. On those same lines, since we already covered that one, what is chapter 1 in the playbook? What's the first play in your mind?
Chapter 1, gut reaction is an awareness of, I think, your own abilities, maybe. I think as a person, right? At least for me anyways, it's like a punch in the face to what you're capable of, right? You kind of have to like get sort of a good right hook from life and go, wow, this is what it means to be a father. Like, this is not what I thought. I don't think any amount of anybody telling you anything can prepare you for it. So chapter 1 is coming to grips with like, hey, this is what it really means to be a dad.
Yeah.
And I think the reason that's chapter 1 is because it changes person to person, and nobody, I can't tell you what it's going to be like to be a dad or what your dad experience is like or whatever, right? It depends on you. It depends on your kid, your support network. So many factors involved. But yeah, chapter 1 is probably that.
Man, off the cuff. I love it. Getting into our final 3 questions. The first one, you get to send one message to all dads. What is your message?
I mean, it comes back to it's you're doing the best with what you have. I mean, you're doing the best with the situation at hand. There's nothing wrong with you. To me, I think that's what it comes down to. Just keep going, right? Reach up for help. But it's that thing is like, I think a lot of it starts with your own kind of self-forgiveness. And like you said, Nick, as well, not just your self-forgiveness, but forgiveness for maybe your parents. I certainly have a very weird relationship with my father, and we don't talk a lot. We haven't since I was a young kid. So in terms of like a father figure, he hasn't ever really been one for many, many years in my life. My mother was a very reactive parent. But, again, through my NLP work, right, I had a whole session where, I worked on like forgiveness. And, I forgave those people. And I understood, standing in that subconscious position that I was, that they were just doing the best they could with what they had too, right?
Right.
So then it's easy. Like, if you hold that belief, this belief of like, everybody is just doing the best they can with what they have, things like forgiveness become a heck of a lot easier, right? Things like gratitude come a lot easier as well, right? So, yeah.
Freeman, what is the one habit or life hack that has been impactful for you as a dad?
Cool. It's a good question, and I have a good response to this. And it's got nothing to do with NLP. So this came up in my life way before NLP was even on my radar. It's really straightforward. There's science that backs this up. Every night before you go to bed, write down 3 positive things that happened that day. And you can write it down anywhere, right? If you're one of the people who keeps their phone by their bed, I mean, stop doing that. But if you still do that, a lot of people do, it's fine. Put it in your phone. But for me, I have a notebook beside my bed, and I write those 3 things down. The reason this is so impactful is it changes what your brain is looking for throughout the day. So if you are at night going, oh, I need to remember what 3 things went well today, your brain subconsciously is going to start looking for things that are going well the next day because you've asked it that night. Hey, by the way, I'm going to ask you again what went well. So you better start looking for it. And there's some really cool science that supports how impactful that is. And it's so easy to do.
Yeah, I love that practice. I have a morning gratitude practice, but I think the evening will be impactful just because you're culminating the day. with that gratitude.
I think those two things combined are great, man. Like keep the gratitude practice first thing in the morning because there's cool evidence behind that. But then, yeah, use the nighttime one as the specific events that happen throughout the day. So you're not necessarily, obviously there's gratitude involved, but for me sometimes it's like, oh yeah, like I had a good lunch with, some friends, or I solved this problem in my house. You know what I mean? I finished this piece of my renovations.
Yeah. Man, that's powerful. All right. This is one of my favorite parts of the show. The final question comes from a previous guest, and you actually knew this guest or know this guest. Warren Deveron's, one of the founders of Dad Good, was on the show, and he left you, he didn't know it was going to be you, but he left you this question. How has fatherhood changed the way you view success?
Oh, that's a solid question. I think that success for me before being a dad was, a little bit about having things, right? I think for all of us, we have that a little bit, right? Success is about, making X amount of money per year, doing X amount of trips, visiting, this many countries or whatever. And I definitely had some of that when I was younger, right? And then becoming a dad is like, success to me now just looks like as long as, I'm comfortable, my wife is comfortable, my kids are comfortable, and we're all happy, enjoying what we're doing, that's all that matters. So it really grounds you in that reality of like, hey, all the stuff that's important to me, right? Like right now, it's those two things. It's my wife and my kid. Yeah. So my success is just tied to how they're feeling and what they're up to, which is a bit of a slippery slope. And I will kind of, say that is like, I guess I want to just kind of put on there is like, don't give up your own self-worth. And I guess I'm realizing this as I'm saying it, right? Like you should need to still have your own ambitions and your own dreams to do, right? If you tie all your self-worth into your kids and your partner, it's probably not going to be good, but just having everybody at a level of, yep, this is good. This is where we are now.
Yeah.
That would be successful.
That caveat is important, right? You can't lose yourself into your kids, into your partner. Like you have to be strong. You have to be happy with who you are first and then invest into them. Right.
Yeah, which goes to like one of my favorite quotes in this is, a rising tide lifts all ships. The better you can be, the better you can be for those around you. So, and I've lived by that model for the last few years, and it's been very, very beneficial.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Freeman, this has been awesome, man. I know you've got a lot of links, different things going on, which I will share all in the show notes, as well as the NLP exercise that we did. If you send me that, where should people, hey, I want to learn more. NLP seems like something I need. I would love to work with this guy. I love rafting. What's the one place they should seek you out?
Yeah, my website's the easiest spot. You can click to everything else from there. So freemanbeals.com. And then, at the bottom of that's all my social links.
Okay, cool. Guys, I'll make sure I highlight that link in the show notes along with all of the social media links. But Freeman, again, great to connect. I look forward to staying connected, man. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
You're very welcome, Nick. Thank you so much. And very much grateful for you doing this work for dads. I think it's important.
Yeah, man. All right, guys, if you like the show, feel free to give us a 5-star review, subscribe wherever you see it, and be sure to follow Freeman. We'll see you on the next episode.